One.
The NFL does it again. There were two great championship games this past Sunday, and now we have our Super Bowl matchup. The LA Rams will square off at home at SoFi Stadium against the Cincinnati Bengals. Yes, that's right, the Cincinnati Bengals. Boys, let's talk about how each team managed to get there, starting with the early game. I'm not going to lie, I didn't even watch the first half, but when I heard it was 21-3 Chiefs, I said, yeah, part of the course. And then to switch the channel later and see that the game was close, I was absolutely stunned. Credit goes to the Cincinnati defense, who held the Chiefs offense to 3 points and 2 interceptions in the second half and overtime, something that the Bills defense, number one defense in the league, couldn't even fathom to do a week previous to that. But how about also Joe Burrow? When you saw him show up to that game with all that drip and that gold chain or diamond chain that he had on, you knew he was going to be fire. The kid is a stud. We said that last week. And now he's just put his name up in that upper echelon tier of quarterbacks by beating the best, Patrick Mahomes. So, guys, what were your impressions of that first game?
Rob, you wanna hit this one first?
Sure. I am an apologist for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, I'd say, despite being an arch rival of them. But there are a few words that I would account to Patrick and the Chiefs. Reckless, offensive, and loose. They're all three of those things. And what makes their team so good is that it's just like Patrick Mahomes fits that organization and that team so perfectly. It's like, what do you think of Mac Jones? I thought Mac Jones was going to have a good year because he fits Bill and the Patriots system very well. It's the same with Mahomes, where coming out of college, he was defined as kind of not a finished product. He's a bit of a wild card. He's a gunslinger. And at times that'll backfire. The turning point in that game, Kansas City was just absolutely dominating the game. The turning point in that game was that end of the half, 5 seconds left. It was such a total Chiefs Mahomes thing to do, where he's a super smart guy, but he took an unnecessary chance. That ball has to go in the end zone. He throws to Tyreek. They don't get any points. And I looked over at one of the people I was watching the games with, and I was like, that might come back to haunt them. And it did. It totally turned the momentum. The Bengals came out similar to the first game, where I believe the Chiefs were up rather big in Cincinnati, and they came all the way back to win. I give nothing but credit to the Chiefs, to the Bengals. They earned it. They played well. I think KC was the better team still. I think they deserved to win, but that doesn't always happen in football. And at this time of year, just throw things out. Just throw it out. It's whoever executes, whoever makes the most plays is going to go ahead and win. I think the Chiefs had the better quarterback. I think they had the better roster, and yet Joe Burrow still wins a game that he probably shouldn't have. Just like last week against the Titans, 9 sacks wins a game. This guy is resilient. He's something that my buddy Aaron Rodgers isn't. He wins these games that he probably shouldn't. And isn't that kind of the definition of a great quarterback?
Absolutely. Yep.
So if I read this correctly, Joe Burrow has a chance at making history. He doesn't. He can become the very first player to win the Heisman, the national championship, and the Super Bowl.
That's first quarterback.
First quarterback. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's some pretty
surprising.
It is surprising. I was shocked when I heard that.
So my whole thing is, there's a guy who, again, people forget he was the number one pick. He had an injury in his, in his rookie year, and he's not really surrounded by what you would call, I don't know if dynamic is the word. Like, hey, Jamar Chase having a great rookie year, but like, he's got nice parts around him. And we talked about how the offensive line of the Bengals was gonna, how are they going to contain Kansas City's deep, above average defense as well. And, and then I look at guys like, handing the ball off. Mixon had an average day. He had 20 carries for 88 yards. And you're saying to yourself, how do they do this? It comes down to what Rob was saying. Burrow just made efficient plays. He played, I think he just made the right pass versus just Mahomes just trying to be Mahomes with the sidearms and and you know, and the glitzy plays. And Burrow was just efficient. He's what everybody thought Garoppolo would be, essentially. But, you know, what I just like about this guy is his poise for such a young age and a quarterback. He's only getting better. And again, I want to give credit to the Cincinnati defense. Again, underrated defense. And they gave him a chance to win. They weren't great, but they made the stops when they had to. And I think you're never out of it, right? Last thing for me, I picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, so I can't take credit for this. But we did say last week, that crazy thing about Cincy. I don't want to say I told you so, because again, it goes against me, but like, flip a coin now. You tell me they can't do it to the Rams? I don't know.
Of course.
I don't know.
Yep.
So,
you know, we talk about how it's a copycat league, and Cincinnati, their defense rushed 3 guys for the majority of that second half and dropped 8 back into coverage. And I'm wondering if teams see that, the success that they had, and begin to emulate that when they play Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs down the line in the seasons to come. He's going to probably have to adjust. He's good enough, and he will. But I thought that was an interesting adjustment from the Bengals. They didn't send a whole lot of people. They didn't blitz a lot. And it seemed to give the Chiefs and Mahomes a little bit of trouble. Let's move on to that. You mentioned Garoppolo, Frankie. He was a big storyline in the second game, which was also a great game. San Francisco held the lead for the majority of the game. And it was eerily similar to that Super Bowl that they lost to the Chiefs, where they jumped out in front, they held the lead, they were the better team. And then in the last quarter, the defense just couldn't hold on, couldn't make enough plays. And then the offense didn't help them out by making plays themselves. And that goes with Garoppolo. Couldn't make enough plays. When they got the ball with 2 minutes left and they needed a field goal to tie it, I don't know about you guys, but I was not confident at all that he was going to march them down. Whereas you get Mahomes in that situation, you get Allen, you get Burrow in those situations, and you have a good feeling about it. I didn't have a good feeling about Garoppolo yesterday, and it worked out that way. And that's why the 49ers went out and drafted a Trey Lance, because they know that when they're in that situation, they want to be able to trust the guy more than they did with Jimmy G. Credit to them. They made it almost to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G. They already did with Jimmy G, but they almost did it twice with him. And it'll be interesting to see where they go next year. If they keep him, if they trade him and go with Lance full time, it'll be interesting to see. But the Rams, you know, Matt Stafford, a lot of people questioned the move by Coach Sean McVay at the beginning of the year to trade Goff and a first round pick for Stafford. It's turned out to be the right move, whether they lose or win in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and how about some of the criticism they got for I can't remember the return, but the midseason trade for Von Miller. You know, everybody thought he was kind of, I wouldn't say washed up, but maybe his best days were behind him. But, you know, how's it looking now? And the move, obviously, of course, Odell Beckham coming out of nowhere and scooping Beckham up. And listen, this is a prototypical example of all in. You know, you see your window, you know it, you put it all in. And
I give him credit for it.
You have to, right? You have to. And essentially they're doing it with like a 3-man rotational running. Like they had kind of paid no attention to the running game between Akers, Henderson, and Sony Michel. This is all Stafford and all Cup. Like, you know, the ball is going to Cup, yet he still comes out of that with, I have it here actually, 11 catches for 142 yards and 2 touchdowns.
He reminds me of 2016 Antonio Brown, whereas you knew he was going to get double team, triple team, didn't matter. He's just going to put up 11 catches, 12 catches, 150 yards, couple of touchdowns. That's where it's at this point for Cup. And going back to what you said, all in, they don't have a first round pick until like 2024. They traded them all away. They're like, the hell with it. Let's go for it. Let's win. I respect it.
Ask them if they think they care if they win the Super Bowl, how many first round picks they're gonna have. So, Bobby,
I said something last week. I don't know if you guys remember this. The Rams were kind of feeling like Tampa Bay of last year, where they came into the playoffs kind of slightly under the radar. I don't think a lot of people were talking about them, and they have quietly been the most impressive team, in my opinion, in this playoffs. And I know that we have Mahomes and we have Allen and Burrow. I got to give Matt Stafford a ton of credit, because I didn't expect him to be doing this. You could argue that he's been the best quarterback in the playoffs so far. He beat up a good Arizona team. They dominated the Tampa Bay Bucks. They were the Bucks that shouldn't have been a close game. And even yesterday, I thought that watching that game, the Rams were the much better team. I know that it was a close game because Deebo Samuel is fantastic, and the Niners have a really good roster. But I think we're going to forget that Stafford threw a pick in the first half when they should have scored. They were kind of marching the ball better than the Niners. I think that the Rams, I think they're that Tampa Bay of last year where everything is clicking. They look great. I could argue they've been the most impressive team in the playoffs. And San Francisco, I picked them as my dark horse team because of Jimmy Garoppolo. The only reason they weren't my Super Bowl pick is because Jimmy Garoppolo he's an average to below average quarterback. He was so bad yesterday. He almost got Deebo Samuel killed because the guy doesn't want to throw outside the numbers. They've got to go and look at upgrading. We talked to, Joe.
They have Trey Lance. They draft him 3rd overall. He's their guy.
And I don't know if Lance is ready yet or if we don't even know. Lance is a lottery ticket. So they need to look at it and say, dear God, please, hopefully Brady maybe doesn't want to retire and come here, or maybe Aaron Rodgers says, let me go back to NoCal.
I think that has a better chance of happening. Yeah.
They've got to upgrade, because I told you guys at the beginning of the year, San Francisco may have a top 3 roster. I think it's unquestionable now that they have a lot of pieces, but like Fred Warner's a stud, Joey Bosa's a stud. Is it Joey Bosa there?
Nick
Bosa, Deebo, like they've got studs around that team. Obviously the left tackle, I'm blanking on his name, but Trent Williams, he's fantastic. They need a quarterback about as badly as anybody, because they are right there with the Rams team, who, give them all the credit in the world. They've been fantastic this playoffs.
And think about the like here they're you're talking about that roster. Who saw the explosion of Deebo Samuel this year? I think there was hope.
Not I.
But not to, like, we're talking game breaker, top 2 or 3 in the NFL. Like, and the guy can run. He was
bullying guys yesterday.
Like, and not only that, they have a pretty good secondary option in Brandon Ayuk. And then let's not forget Kittle, right? He got another. They have a decent team, and you're sitting there as Trey Lance saying, like, he's waiting for his shot. But you're right, Robbie. If you're a team, you know what? I might even put the Rams in the same category as the Niners as the same category as the Rams, to say we're almost there. Do we have to make a move, like almost an all-in move, to get a quarterback to take us over the hump? Because guess who else is in their division? The Rams are in their division. So, especially if they win the Super Bowl, that the roads go through the Rams, right? So, and I think we talked about it last week too. The AFC's got a ton of young stud quarterbacks. If I'm San Francisco, I'm looking at my roster. I'm looking at next year. They could potentially come out of the NFC with a good quarterback, right?
There's the NFC is there's no if the rumors are true that Tom is retiring, look at the NFC. There's nobody outside of your own division who you've got to beat those guys anyway. You're looking at the Ram. You could argue if Aaron leaves the Packers, it's the Rams, it's the Cardinals, it's the Niners. They're your 3. They're your big 3, and then
all in the same division.
Don't forget about the Cowboys now.
The Cowboys will be the 4 or 5 team, depending on if Russell Wilson stays. But
are we surprised though that the Niners are good? Because realistically, they were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Last year, they had a really bad season, but they had a ton of injuries, key injuries. And that's the only reason they finished as poorly as they did. And then by the time you get to week 12 and you got such a poor record, at that point, you're trying to lose games almost involuntarily. So I think there's no reason why we should be shocked that they're this good and this close, because they were this close 2 years ago. And now they've just taken even more steps, because guys like Deebo have taken huge strides to be even better players, game breakers at this point. So I was surprised if you would have told me that they'd be this strong, but I don't know why. I'm silly, because it's pretty much the same team, and they're solid.
It's because of the quarterback. That's what makes it surprising for me. is that Jimmy Garoppolo, in a league where you need good quarterback play, they are almost made the Super Bowl with mediocre to below. I don't know. Did he throw a touchdown pass yesterday? He's one of the only quarterbacks in NFL history that went into the NFC into the championship game. He hadn't thrown a touchdown pass in the playoffs yet.
Yeah.
You got to think 0 passing touchdowns, which is unbelievable. I just want to touch on a guy, Deebo Samuel. I've been watching football a long time. I don't remember a guy being able to do this, being able to be a running back, be a wide receiver, an elite wide receiver, and a really good running back. Whenever he got the ball, it was like he was getting 8-9 yards. Maybe somebody's slipping my mind, but I don't recall ever seeing a guy that can just do this, that did whatever they asked. He was a Swiss Army knife. He is.
And he can't be tackled.
Yeah, no, he's a beast.
It's incredible.
It's like when he wants extra yards, he gets them.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, boys. So we got a really interesting Super Bowl ahead. I don't want to talk too much about it because I know we're going to discuss it next week as when we do our Super Bowl preview show. But I'll guess I'll end it with this question. I know the Rams are going to be heavy favorites, I would assume, but it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Bengals could be our 2022 Super Bowl champions. Is it not?
I would be a little surprised. Now, I'm surprised because I didn't think they were going to beat KC. I thought that was just too tall a task. I think the Rams are even a worse matchup than KC because of that D line versus the O line.
Yeah.
And I think they're gonna have to be very creative in ways to kind of chip Von Miller and do your best to slow down Aaron Donald. But I think the one thing that we're not giving Cincinnati credit for is they are a young team, but Joe Burrow is 25 years old. He ain't a spring chicken. In fact, here's a stat. Burrow and Allen are both older than Patrick Mahomes, which sounds surprising because Patrick is so far and away a more accomplished quarterback at this point. But Burrow's 25. He's not a kid, and he's got a ton of swagger. Would I be surprised if they win? Obviously, you can't be surprised anymore in sports with the Giants beating the Patriots twice and this Cincinnati team beating KC twice within 4 weeks, which is beyond surprising. So I think it's a bad matchup, but it's football. It's
Anything
game.
Can happen,
Anybody can win.
I think having the Rams being at home is obviously an amazing excuse me, being at home, it has obviously going to have a factor from that standpoint, but like we saw with Tampa last year. But one thing, and again, talk about Cincy here, one thing I'll give them the edge on, Joe Burrow has a history of being in the limelight, national championship games and such. I think having that experience, I know it's from a college standpoint, but like, they kind of rival each other, and he's been prone to big games. Matty Stafford's been doing it this year, and credit to him. Like, hey, listen, I picked him in my fantasy football pool, so obviously I know what I was doing from that standpoint. But Burrow may have an edge here, and I think there's something to say about having really no pressure, being on the road, a big game, national televised game. I don't want to give him no chance, but like Burrow could do this. He could pull it out, especially for that reason. I think if you're a betting man, you might want to put a little bit of money on Aaron Donald because there's no way in hell Cincinnati is going to stop that guy. And he may have some good outside shot an MVP award here. So
yeah, watch the line on his sacks be at like 3.5 though.
Exactly.
And that's tough.
Exactly.
I agree with you, Frank. I think the key to the game will be if the Rams can run the football, they're going to win the football game. If they can't, then they're going to rely on Stafford. They can still win because Stafford, I think he's thrown for like a ton of yards this playoffs, but
3 and change last 335.
Yeah, which is fantastic. But I think the key will be, can the Cincinnati defense make the Rams offense one-dimensional, and then they'll have a chance.
It'll be fun to see Super Bowl 56 a mere 2 weeks away. Can't wait.
Hooday.